Hi, welcome back. It's Anna
And Rose.
coming to you from the Mystery Parlor.
We are super excited because we have had some early cool weather this year, which reminds us that spooky season is right around the corner.
Rose sent me a pumpkin butter and marshmallow coffee recipe we can't wait to try. And she has already made pumpkin bread. I'm super jealous. But the apple orchards are opened and the flights of hard cider are in our near future as soon as we finish recording this episode.
Today we are going to cover voodoo, where it started, how it has changed, and where it is thriving now.
Voodoo means spirit or deity in the Fon language, which is one of the native languages of Benin, West Africa. Benin shares a border with Nigeria on the east side and Togo on the west. Voodoo originated in this region and is still practiced there today.
Up to 40% currently follow voodoo in Benin, and 50% of the population, or 2.5 million persons, in Togo practice voodoo today.
Voodoo is a monotheistic religion, meaning they believe in one God. Their god, Bondi, is close to the Christian God in some ways. For instance, he rules both the living and dead spirit worlds and is the origin of life.
As a matter of fact, 2 recent Catholic popes have visited this region in West Africa. Pope John Paul II met with African voodoo priests and spoke about how the religion of their ancestors has seeds of the word amongst it. This was not received well by some strict Catholics. Pope Benedict XVI, on the other hand, talked of voodoo practitioners' need of being liberated from occultism on his visit to the region.
There is a voodoo temple of pythons in Ouidah, Benin. It was built after the king of Ouidah in the 1700s hid in a forest during a war. Pythons protected him from being captured and killed. As a thank you, the temple was built. The pythons that live in the temple are let out to eat, sometimes visiting homes before returning to the temple. The snakes are treasured by the locals and treated with respect.
Voodoo was and still is used to serve the spirits through offerings, rituals, and devotion in order to receive health, protection, or favor in return.
There is no centralized hierarchy in voodoo. The rituals and knowledge is passed down through generations, and it greatly varies.
During the second half of the 1800s, the Europeans began colonizing Africa. That is when Roman Catholicism began filtering into voodoo practices.
At the same time, the slave trade caused many of those practicing voodoo to be brutally uprooted and moved to Haiti and the U.S.
Most voodoo is universal. It can be spelled many ways, with one O or two, O-U, A-U, or A-U-X. They all represent the religion connected to the natural world where healing, advice, and favor can be obtained through herbs, spells, rituals, offerings, and sacrifice. There is a spiritual connection to trees, plants, rivers, mountains, stones, and stars, even the weather.
A common part of rituals are drums. Drums are considered sacred and believed to hold spirits. During rituals, mesmerizing rhythms are played and dancers move to the beat to summon the spirits and possess someone.
Yes, we said possess. Before we get into possession, don't worry if you don't want to be possessed or if you bring a child or children with you. Wax in the hair can block the spirit from entering them, or you.
During these rituals, often held in temples or cemeteries, altars are set up. Food and drink are common offerings, but sacrifices are called for on special feasts and celebrations. Chicken, goats, pigs, and other animals are killed as an offering to beckon the spirits. The sacrificed animals give the spirits life energy, otherwise explained as feeding the spirits so they can be strong in turn and grant humans their requests.
The thought of sacrificed animal sends shivers down our spines. But as Anna and I were talking about it, we started thinking about how other groups, religions, hunters, and even us as meat eaters have some rituals of our own. We realized the voodoo practice of sacrificing animals might not be as foreign as it sounds.
Take, for instance, the story of Abraham in the Old Testament. God asked him to sacrifice his own son Isaac, and he was going to do it. Had him all bound up to an altar. Lucky for Isaac, an angel intervened and a ram showed up to take Isaac's place.
Fast forward to today, kosher foods that are killed for consumption have to be slaughtered a certain way by a certain person, which includes a blessing followed by a particular preparation. The same can be said for those who process halal meats, in which the preparation is very similar.
Do you know any hunters? Have you ever heard of one eating or at least taking a bite out of one of the organ meats when they gut and hang their catch? Sounds super gross, but sometimes they do it. Food for thought. Do these sound just as ritualistic as the voodoo animal sacrifices do?
As the drums beat and people dance, one person is usually possessed by the Loa or Iwa, commonly known as a spirit, that will speak through them. This possession can last hours or days. During this time, the Loa will offer counsel, blessings, warnings, and healings to those present. It is an honor to be the one chosen by the spirits to possess.
It is also common practice to call on ancestors for protection, healing, and advice. Many voodoo practitioners have home altars set up for this purpose. You might find an altar adorned with things such as Catholic saints and Papa Legba, icons, a white and or colorful candle, oils, incense, pictures or items special to deceased relatives, plus fresh water. There may also be offerings left. We'll get into offerings in a moment.
Haitian voodoo practices are also passed down in families or secret societies. There is no clear division between good and evil. Instead, it depends on the situation. It is said Haiti is 70% Catholic, 30% Protestant, and 100% voodoo.
In Haiti, the Roman Catholic influence is seen in the voodoo rites, rituals, and art, even in the care of the deceased. After death, the corpse is prepared by bathing in a voodoo ritual herbal infusion, then given a Catholic funeral and buried in a cemetery.
On any given Catholic Saint's Day, which is usually the date the saint died, the voodoo communities celebrate birthday parties for the departed saints. On All Saints and All Souls Day, there are public festivals and celebrations in the cemeteries of the capital city of Haiti, Port-au-Prince.
Although Papa Legba originated in African spirituality, he has resonated with Haitian in New Orleans voodoo as well as Santeria. We are going to cover Santeria in another episode.
He has a special job of opening and closing the communication between humans and the Loa, or spirits, as he speaks all the languages. Papa Legba is invoked at the beginning and end of most ceremonies.
He is sometimes depicted as the Catholic Saint Peter. He is often associated with crossroads, gates, keys, and doors. His preferred offerings are alcohol, tobacco, and candy.
Haitian voodoo can be described as a bit witchcrafty with a dash of black magic, philosophy, and herbal medicine.
It might be appropriate to bring up zombies at this point. Haitian voodoo describes zombies as bodies without souls. Could be folktales or just a metaphor. I mean, who hasn't met someone that when you look at them in the eyes, you wonder if there is anyone in there?
In Haiti, it is said that there are bokers for hire. These priests or priestesses use necromancy and or poison to turn unfortunate souls into subservient slaves with no emotion, aka a zombie. Bokers serve the spirits and practice for both good and evil.
Hoogans and Mambos oppose Bokers. These voodoo priests and priestesses specialize in spiritual guidance, rituals, and ceremonies.
You may want to keep your hair and nail clippings out of the hands of anyone who might want to harm you, just to be safe. Some voodoo societies are rumored to shapeshift into dogs and walk the streets at night, too. Team Jacob?
In Haiti, there are 2 voodoo pilgrimages during the month of July. One is the Sotedo One is the Sotedo waterfall, which is considered sacred. The other is to the city of Plaine de Nod. You will find voodoo followers partaking in mud baths, lighting candles, sacrificing animals, and scrubbing themselves with aromatic leaves as they bathe in the waterfalls.
We know we're butchering a lot of this. Sorry. On to New Orleans, Louisiana, where voodoo was brought from slaves directly from Africa and others who traveled from Africa through Haiti. Many enslaved Africans in Haiti were resold after a few years to owners in the States. Slave owners in New Orleans came to prefer slaves directly from Africa because they were afraid of the black magic that the ones from Haiti practiced more often.
New Orleans might be my favorite place to visit. It's like taking a step back in time, strolling down the music-filled streets. We like to go after Mardi Gras, but before the summer heat. The Creole food, really all the food, is excellent. In case you don't know, we are foodies. Of course, we eat our fill of beignets with café au lait and a French croissant or 2. Here are my culinary highlights from our last visit. The New Orleans crawfish bread at Landry's. The bread was crusty and light, but still crisp and smothered in savory crawfish tails, mozzarella, Louisiana spices, tomatoes, and garlic in a divine creamy sauce. It should be paired with any and all the wine while you look out at Jackson Square. At Cafe Mespero, I loved the crawfish cream sauce over a crawfish cake and over easy eggs on a buttermilk biscuit. It was Eggs Benedict Nola style and is listed as a Bayou on the menu. It washed down nicely with a cucumber gimlet or 2. I feel like I'm writing the Mysteries and Hauntings State by State Louisiana edition, but hopefully I'll be back there and have more food tips by then.
Back to voodoo. In New Orleans, the voodoo is considered Creole voodoo or Laveau voodoo, named after the Queen of New Orleans voodoo, Marie Laveau. She, like so many others, mixed Catholicism with recipes and rituals of her ancestors to help anyone she could. Marie helped and healed both the innocent and not so innocent alike.
Marie's great-grandmother was sold as a slave from Africa. Then, in 1756, she was resold with a 2-year-old daughter, Marie's grandmother, Catherine. Catherine went on to have mixed-race children fathered by her slave owner, Henry. One of those children is Marie's mother, Marguerite. Marguerite was freed in 1790, and Catherine bought her own freedom in 1795.
Catherine became a successful businesswoman and purchased the house on St. Anne Street, where the voodoo queen Marie Laveau would live her entire life. Marie Laveau's father is Charles Laveau, who was a dark-skinned real estate broker and slave trader.
Marie Laveau was born on September 10th, 1801. 6 days later, she was baptized by Father Pierre Antone at the St. Louis Cathedral in Jackson Square, the same church you can visit today.
Marie grew up on St. Anne Street under the influence and protection of her mother and grandmother. In 1819, she married a free man from Haiti, Jacques Paris. Father Père Antoine, the same priest that baptized her, married the two at the St. Louis Cathedral. At this wedding, Marie's father gifted her large gold hoop earrings that she is usually depicted wearing.
There are baptism records for two daughters of Marie and Jacques. There is no further information on these girls, and the funeral records for a few years when they would have been young have been lost. Marie's husband, Jacques Pierre, either died or went back to Haiti in the early 1820s.
After Jacques' departure, Marie became a hairdresser and had a wealthy white clientele. If you know any hairdressers, you know they are privy to family secrets and know what's going on behind closed doors. She held the keys to many family closets holding skeletons.
At the time, whites could not marry free women of color. Instead, they entered into a, how do you say this, Rose? Placage relationship. This is what Marie did next with a wealthy man named Louis Christopher Dominique Derminy de Galpian. They hopefully I got some of those right. They had 7 children together. During this time, Marie and her husband were slave owners. They bought and sold 8 slaves over time. Just like her mother, grandmother, and great-grandmother had been when enslaved, Marie had her slaves baptized Catholic according to the mandate in the law.
It's interesting that Marie kept a statue of Saint Marin in her home. He is the patron saint of runaway slaves. Even though the cottage she lived in, learned and practiced voodoo in, is gone, the foundation remains and a new house has been built on it. You might go by it during some of the haunting tours, and many have seen a ghostly apparition wearing a white dress and head dressing just like Marie wore.
During the yellow fever and cholera epidemics, the people in New Orleans were dying faster than they could be entombed. Cemeteries had to stack bodies waiting to be dealt with. This created even more issues with sanitation and disease spread. Doctors tried to treat patients with things like bloodletting, leeching, and other treatments that did more harm than good.
Marie, on the other hand, had learned and sharpened her skills of healing. These healing recipes had been shared through the generations in her family. Many slaves brought their knowledge and seeds to plant in their new lands. They also learned from Native Americans whenever they could. Marie would bring teas and soups to the sick, keeping patients clean, laying hands on them, and knowing which herbs would bring wellness.
Marie Laveau is credited for saving countless victims of disease using herbal medicine. She was not the only one. Many Creole women knew the same remedies, passed down through the generations. Doctors of the time wanted the recipes, but the Creole women would not share their secrets.
Father Père Antoine allowed Marie to gather others who practiced voodoo in the gardens behind the church, the St. Louis Cathedral, to perform rituals. This was Marie's way to get others to attend Mass with her. She believed in voodoo and Catholicism and successfully used them together for ministering to the sick.
Voodoo in the New Orleans area was tolerated and seen as helpful by many, and accepted as a part of the good instead of good versus evil. Still some, possibly out of jealousy, were against those who dabbled in voodoo, saying it was the work of the devil.
If I were there back in her day and came down with a serious illness, or if Marie Laveau was here during our recent COVID debacle, I would surely call on Marie Laveau instead of a house call doctor with a bottle of leeches or an ER visit today. Just saying.
We are not saying that we're against modern medicine. We just think there is more to healing than the newest pill or injection.
If you are wondering what else she did, there are many stories of her helping sway court cases one way or another with much success, or even get settled cases overturned.
Marie was charitable, helping whoever she could. even allowing others to be buried in her tomb when they could not afford one of their own. This tomb is in the St. Louis Cemetery, number 1. The last burial in this tomb was in 1950. The church has restored the tomb since, and now it can only be visited with a tour guide. It is rumored that her body was moved to an oven wall in cemetery number 2, but we'll never know for sure.
As a side note, the cemeteries in New Orleans are all above ground. They are designed this way because New Orleans is below sea level. Family tombs are used over and over again. It is common practice to entomb a body and then reopen the tomb when the next family member passes and add their remains. Due to the excessive heat in the region, the tombs are made to allow airflow for quick decomposition. Bodies decompose to bone or dust within a year. A side note to the side note, fragrant trees are planted in and around the cemeteries to mask the smell. Gross. The previous body is then pushed off the back of the shelf they were resting on into a pit with all the others who used the tomb before them. The body is pushed with a 10-foot pole. Sound familiar? Hence the term, I wouldn't touch it with a 10-foot pole, or saying, I guess. In the event someone in a family dies before the year is up, wall oven vaults can be rented.
Ew. All I can think of is the smell of magnolias and jasmine.
Oh, I was thinking about the rotting squirrel in my yard last week.
On to what the voodoo scene is like today in New Orleans. Many shops, altars, and museums and signs of voodoo are everywhere. Some voodoo shops have the devil on display, and others have St. Michael the Archangel. The incense, homemade soaps, lotions, and room sprays are enchanting. Mostly everyone is fun, lighthearted, a little ornery, helpful, maybe dealing with a demon or two, but no one I've met there has ever come off as sinister. Alan and I are always in for the night by sunset and have never experienced the nightlife of New Orleans. We walk around all day, browsing art galleries and all the shops while eating as often as possible. We also love a good tour, especially if it's a bit macabre.
Our final thought is about voodoo dolls. You can buy them anywhere and everywhere in the French Quarter. We are sure with the right evil connection, anything is possible, but for the most part, they are nothing more than tourist souvenirs. When human doll effigies were used by medicine men and women and voodoo practitioners, they were a representation of a particular patient. The needles or marks documented which areas of the body had been or needed working on. In other words, they were used as medical records.
The other use for voodoo dolls was and still is used to represent a deceased person someone is trying to communicate with, especially in a cemetery. And if you were thinking that the living someone would have to invoke Papa Legba at the beginning and end of the ritual, you would be correct. While on tour of the Masonic Cemetery number 2, the tour guide and I were talking all things voodoo. Just then, we both heard an audible voice talking gibberish between the two tombs that we were closest to. After confirming with each other that we heard the same thing, and I might add that there were no other humans in the area, just then, my husband Alan, who was about 10 tombs ahead of us, stated, "Hey, look, a voodoo doll is here in the tomb's flower pot." Our guide insisted no one touch the doll, saying he didn't know what could be attached to it spiritually, or if the door to the other realm had been properly shut.
We only personally know of one story of someone who used voodoo, or more specifically, went to someone who used what we think was voodoo to help them with a situation. Due to the outcome, it may have been more black magic than voodoo, but here is the story. The practitioner was from the Caribbean, possibly Haiti, and was just here in the States visiting their daughter for a few months. The person we know was wanting a divorce from a man who didn't want to leave her. The ritual involved finding and buying a black chicken, sacrificing it in water that was fed by a cold water spring. There were other steps involved for which we do not know the details, but we know for sure that this ritual worked. This woman's soon-to-be ex had a change of heart, and an amicable divorce proceeded. But afterward, this woman had tragedy after tragedy in the years following. Fires, untimely deaths, and heartbreak. Yes, those words were plural.
The tragedies she experienced are too sad and terrifying to repeat. So yes, we would still call on Marie Laveau in the case of yellow fever in the 1800s, but instead of voodoo, we'd recommend a great attorney in the case of a divorce.
Hope you enjoyed this dive into voodoo with us. It all started in West Africa, was spread through the slave trade to other parts of the world, took a twist in Haiti, and found its way into New Orleans and other parts of the American South. Amazingly, it is still practiced in all of these places today.
Have you dabbled with voodoo? Requested the services of someone who does? We want to hear from you. You could be our next listener story. Check out our link in the description for ways to get in touch. Can't wait to hear from you.
Thanks for listening.
Bye for now.